the other program that we are participating in, which is the community rating system. So we have been working diligently over the last few months to get that plan together, and Mr. Reardon is here to present what we have tonight for a recommendation to Town Council.
Does Mr. Reardon need to be sworn in or anything? Thank you. Just like to
Thank you,
double
Jim.
check. Thank you. I don't know if that is on.
There it goes.
There we
All right.
go.
Good?
Yes.
All right. Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Chairman, members of the Planning Board, thank you very much for having us here this evening. We're very pleased to have been able to work with your town on pulling this draft plan together for your consideration. And I want to say how much I appreciate working with Mike DeLuca and Jill Sabo on this project. It's always a great pleasure to work with them. Again, I'm Jim Reardon. I'm from Weston and Sampson and the project manager for this project. And Mike, we can advance, I think. So tonight, we're going to review the current status of the 2024 Hazard Mitigation Plan, as I mentioned, which is in draft. We'll do a review of that draft, and then we'll take any questions and comments from yourselves and from the audience. Please advance. Okay, key changes since 2019. We also had the pleasure of working on your 2019 HMP, so again, it's been a great deal of fun being able to work with you folks again. If we could go back to that for just a moment, Mike. So some key changes that have taken place include change in the hazard mitigation guide from FEMA, as well as an update of the Rhode Island shim cap, so the state hazard mitigation plan. And these things are all reflected in your 2024 draft. Now we can move forward. This is a tentative schedule where we started off. So you can see in September, we began the project. We were selected and brought on board. And then since then, we've been working with Mike and Jill and your local hazard mitigation committee, which is made up of various department heads and members of departments in town. So staff, key staff of the town, and moving that forward through pulling together a draft, advertising it in your local journal. Jill and Mike were instrumental in getting it up online on your town website and getting the word out about the plan. We've done a couple of public meetings, and now, of course, we're in front of you folks for recommendation to move it to the town council and submit it to FEMA and REMA for their review. So we expect all that'll be completed, as far as the submittal goes, roughly at the end of March, the beginning of April, and then the review process takes place. That can take a little while sometimes with REMA and FEMA. Generally have to allow for 4 months. We think they're actually going to move it through a little more quickly than that, though. Next slide, please. So major elements of the hazard mitigation plan, as you can see, they're set up by chapter on this particular slide. Of course, it's got an introduction associated with it and planning process, hazard profiles that refers to the kinds of storms and natural disasters that you might expect to see in town. Vulnerability assessment, so things in town that are of particular concern that might get destroyed during a significant event. Facility assessment and inventory, so all the infrastructure in town, all the emergency shelters in town, transportation in and out of town, those are all considered as part of that. And then capabilities and assessments, so that refers to the capacity of your community to respond to an event using the tools that are available to them. And of course, there's always some gaps in this process, right? So you look at the vulnerabilities, you look at what you have, you look at your capabilities, and you say to yourself, well, are we fully prepared for, the worst disaster that might hit us in the next 5 years? And there's no town in the world that is fully prepared for that. So of course, you want to take actions to improve things. So that's covered in mitigation actions in Chapter 7. Plan maintenance and implementation, so that refers to taking the actions, moving them forward, given a time schedule, and of course, maintaining the plan over the course of the next 5 years. These are 5-year plans. So roughly once a year, you might take a look at your plan and decide to make whatever updates are necessary to it. Plan adoption, which is the process that we're basically beginning right now with all of you folks this evening, and then the appendix of additional information. So all the information that we used as data to go into the development of the plan. Next slide, please. So as you can see, this is where we are in the process. We're just beginning on the plan approval process. Next slide. So as part of the effort of getting the word out, a survey was put together and was publicized. That was in a paper of local record and, of course, put up on your website. It also went around through social media. You guys had what I would say is an unusually good response for a plan like this. So 147 respondents to the survey. That was over the course of, I think, 2 months. And you can see on the right, the word cloud sort of indicates which kind of things were most on people's minds. Not surprisingly, hurricanes, tropical storms, thunderstorms, windstorms, sea level rise, winter weather, all these sorts of things that you folks experience pretty regularly here in the town in one way or another, or, you know, not very far away in your memory, are of course things that are reflected in people's responses to the survey. So, of course, those things are then reflected in the plan too, in part because we want to be responsive to what people are worried about, but in part also because these respondents are really reflecting on things that have happened. If they've happened in the past, they're likely to recur in the future. Next slide, please. Here's a few examples on the left of some of the kinds of the results of disasters, natural disasters that have occurred in the past. And then on the right is a table. And this table is
from Mr. Friday, it shows that, I don't disagree with him, it looks as though there's some sort of a glitch in the statistics there. So we'd ask that you take a quick look at that, and if need be, we can speak with police or fire chief to see if they might have information that could help us.
Certainly.
I would think the evacuation areas, like I know we got calls during Sandy, and, we're not on Harbor Island or Great Island, I'm sure those areas.
Yeah, we have a mapped evacuation, we have an evacuation map.
Yeah.
And it has high, low, medium, and low priority areas. And the police department and the fire department have a protocol for that. So when we have something big coming, they know what they're doing. And it's not just two people.
Right,
It's more than that.
That's why I thought the numbers were fishy.
Sure.
Thank you.
Staff, do you have anything you want to address?
No,
Okay.
we're
Anybody else
good.
on the board?
Could you, on the Stapley update, could you just tell us if there were any meaningful changes between 2004 and 2024 and 2019?
Absolutely. So,
Jim, I can
And what-
take that if
and
you
what
like.
they are?
sorry?
I can take that for you.
Sure.
Yeah, because I think this is important. Thank you, Mr. Callahan. There were two major changes that have occurred, progress that we've made since 2019. The groin was constructed in front of the Scarborough wastewater treatment plant. Some of you may have seen the work being done last summer. And that, while it's still in the action item list, we're wrapping that project up. And also, since 2019 to 2024, we have applied for and received at least 2 grants to look at the feasibility study of raising and culverting the Harbor Island causeway, so the Foddering Farm Causeway, to reach Harbor Island, which reaches about 350 residents there. So there are 2 projects. We've also made some progress. The fire department has made some progress on their, I think it's 8A and 8B, right, on their notification systems. So we have, actually, our department, and with Jim as well, been working through this action item list, trying to get things done. And furthermore, we have a grant that we're going to be putting forward, which will address one of the lower priority items, but something I'm interested in, which is the historical flooding component. So we can actually gain points for our community rating system project, or, because we're right now at a rating of 7, if we can get enough points, we can get to a lower rating, which means a higher discount for folks who have flood insurance. And one of those ways we can do that, it's an easy target if we can get to it, which is providing historical flooding context through town.
There's one more thing. The item 2, beach and dune replenishment, it's been in there. It rose much higher in importance, as you might gather from the storms that occurred in the last, in December and January. So while it was in the plan, it's not a new introduction to the plan. Its level of importance has risen dramatically.
Understandable. There's just 2 small questions I'm curious, just 2 issues I was curious about. On page 715, action item number 13, talks about the number of properties in the town that have been subject to repetitive losses, 23. Is that number the same number as we had 4 or 5 years ago?
What's the number?
23,
No,
up or down,
up
significantly?
4.
And just on the stormwater issue, are the outfalls on Scarborough Beach, are they state, does it matter whether they're state or local outfalls in terms of whether they're addressed in this plan? No, it doesn't matter. Okay, so are they state outfalls?
I would believe they are, because they're coming from the,
Coming down Burnside, it's either Burnside or it's coming off of
right,
Ocean
both
Road.
of which are state roads.
Right.
So I would gather that it's all state property, and therefore it has to be managed by the state of Rhode Island.
Okay, so the outfalls, so for example, the outfall on the north end of Scarborough, which basically collects.
If I could ask, can you speak into?
I'm sorry, yeah, I'm sorry. The outfall at the north end of Scarborough collects water through the watershed that runs kind of to the northeast from there. It's not just kind of collecting stormwater off the road.
Are you sure of that?
I'm pretty sure of that, yeah.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure of that. So I just don't know
What's-
whether it's,
So what's the question?
the question is it covered in here or not?
We have a section in the plan where we identify state-owned facilities that we have interest in and are concerned about, but know that we have no authority over. And we make a statement to the state, through this plan, that we consider these high priorities that the state should be addressing. I do not recall if we put those stormwater facilities in the hazard mitigation plan, but remember that this plan is for protection of existing facilities to protect them from natural hazards. If the facility is not functioning properly, that's not appropriate for this plan,
Got it.
if that's the concern you
No,
have.
it's not, I'm just trying to, so does the state have, for its facilities, does the state have a plan like this?
Yeah, it does. It's called the shim cap.
For this-
It's
for
the
state-
state hazard, yeah.
And would they do it by town, would they do it town by town?
No, it's really a much broader plan, and, more macroscopic kind of focus. Yeah.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Anybody from the public have questions? No? Not hearing any. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you, too.
Next step from the staff, what do you want from us?
I'd like a recommendation to town council.
So the request is a recommendation of the staff's reports, the updated strategy for reducing risk from natural hazards in Narragansett, a multi-hazard mitigation strategy. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second? All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? We have a unanimous decision to go forward.
Thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you for all your work. Thank you guys for all your work. This was heavy reading. This was pretty amazing. And thank you guys for going through it. We're starting to get used to reading 1,000 and 2,000 and 5,000 page documents. It's becoming interesting.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Jim.
Our next agenda item is the zoning ordinance text amended to regulation of two-family dwellings. Before we get into this, I'd like to address something quickly. If I can find some notes here. I hate when I organize myself. So this stems from the new mandates from the State House and the Speaker. And we've gone through those. We've sent forward to the town council changes that need to be put in place. And now we're getting time to settle down and start and look at nitty-gritty. And we said this in the beginning, that we would see regular updates and adjustments need to be made, especially as things come up. So the Speaker has stated that this new direction and these new directives are for developing and expanding affordable housing. And I don't know the man. I take him at his word. But if I was a betting man, I would say he didn't write these. And my guess would be it was a lawyer, and that's typically because lawyers write these. If I was to be a betting man, I would say that lawyer, based on what I've read and the details, is more in a line of representing investment developers than looking at expanding affordable housing. There are no, at least from what I can see, and I've gone over these too many times, there's no clauses, mandates, or incentives for developing affordable housing. In fact, what is provided is a means to hasten development, and specifically larger structures and higher densities. Under the guidelines provided by the state, Narragansett can and will look very different than it does today, and what's envisioned by the master plan. In fact, none of this has anything to do with the master plan. Before us is a zoning amendment regarding two-family and multifamily dwellings. that if we don't take action, and this may be a first step action, or stopgap, there will be dramatic impacts. I know there's frustrations on everybody's part of what came down and what is being implemented. I know everyone has some urgencies that we'd like to address, and I've met with each, and Doc is the only one I haven't met. I've been meeting with everybody individually to develop a list of projects that we need to address over the next year. And most of these come out of the changes here. They involve zoning capacities, infrastructure capacities, densities. This one specifically affects some of our most dense neighborhoods that are in fact, some are even at, I would question if they're in excess of carrying capacity of the infrastructure there. I'm going to ask this board, though, to focus on this amendment tonight, okay? Let's get this done. The other things we're going to address as we can. But the focus here is this amendment. So if you have specific things that are addressed for this amendment, let's focus and let's take care of that. Bigger picture stuff we're going to have to handle as we can. All right? That said, I'm going to turn this over to the staff to introduce and discuss the changes and the steps they'd like us to provide.
Okay, so good evening again. We discussed this, we opened up the conversation last month, and there were a few questions, so in the interest of not repeating myself, or unless you'd like me to, I'd like to go through the changes in the staff report that are highlighted. There were a couple of things pointed out, specifically consistency with zoning. We added that section in and referred to it. We did go through and take a look again at the comprehensive plan and the elements, policies, and procedures on where this amendment might apply, or in the case of what we've discovered is that the comprehensive plan, as we discussed last month, does not contemplate for this level of densification. One of the other major changes, I don't want to say major, but significant changes was at the last meeting, last month, we had R20 as proposed as a special use permit. I'd like to point out, which I did last month as well, that the R20 zone, along with R10 and R10A, are all three identified in the future land use map as moderate high to high density. So the inclusion of the R20 zone as in this amendment as a potential prohibition for two-family is compliant and comports with the comprehensive plan and the future land use map. The other changes that I think we started to go, the one change I did not make because I didn't see there was a consensus on last month was the affordable housing component for a period of 30 years. There was some discussion of a higher number than that, but I don't believe the board came to a consensus on that. So with respect to zoning, which is the map that you see up there, that was a conversation last month about what is the underlying zoning. I found it difficult to try to show it to you in a PowerPoint, but I did my best. So on the left-hand side, you're going to see that the entire zoning map, the entire town and zoning, and it's all color-coded, and you can see right there. And by the way, everyone can go to the town's website on MapGeo and see this as well. It's interactive, you can click on and off. And these are all the zones in town color-coded. And then just by way of example, on the right-hand side, I give you a picture of the north end, which is properly labeled. If you can go to the next slide, Mike. Thank you. So similar to what I had showed you last month, these are the same images. So on the left is the north side, and then sort of the North Sprague Bridge, Middle Bridge area, and then under that in the middle is the pier, and then on the right-hand side is the south end. So these are those same portions of town with the zoning as the base layer, so you can see what the zones are. If you just toggle one more, Mike, thank you. Okay, so this is the map that I showed you last month. I had to change the colors because, for clarity's sake. But everything that you see in black is, this is just the R10 and R10A zones. Every lot that you see in black is a lot that's less than 10,000 square feet. I just want to let everyone know too, these are gross numbers. This is just us using GIS. I didn't go through and pull every individual lot that might not apply. We took big big whole numbers here. So that's about, I believe, 6,000. Oh, Mike zoomed in? Yeah, okay. So, but you lose my numbers, Mike, if you do that. Thank you. There we go. So right there down in the corner, you can see you have about 6,100 lots total, and about 2,800 of them are less than 10,000 square feet. And then another, actually a total of 53, so that's inclusive of the ones that are under 10, are less than 20,000 square feet. So right now, our ordinance is permits two-family structures on lots of 20,000 square feet or more, and if you're less, pardon me, not right now. December 31st, 2023, we did allow two families on lots of 20,000 square feet, or if it were less than 20,000 square feet, the requirement was to receive a lot area variance and potentially a frontage variance if needed. The state law changed that as we went over last month, so I wanted to show you visually how many lots we have in town, just in the R10 and R10A, that are less than 20,000 square feet. And just like I showed you last month for R20, same thing, there's the underlying zoning. And then there again, those lots in black you see are under 10,000. The lots in that darker orange, the same colors, by the way, those are lots under 20, and then everything else is 20,000 and above. So significantly, I think if you go to the next slide, thank you. So these are all the lots in town, R10, R10A, and R20, with the coding right there. So you can see right there, we have about 6,700 substandard lots for two-family. That's a significant number of lots in town. Okay. Nope, that's it. I think those are the only slides I had. Those are the four, I think I might have added the zoning one. And so those are the 4 slides from last month. Those are the things that you asked staff to address. And if we have any, if there are other questions, I'm happy to go through that.
Okay. Doc, do you have any questions? No. Jerry? No. Rupert?
Don't have questions, I have a couple of motions.
Okay, we'll save those for a second. Tom?
I just want to be sure.
Tom, if you could use the mic just so the people can hear you.
I just want to be sure I've got the underlying issues here. The rationale for adding 20, the 20 was that it is in the zoning, in the zoning and the comprehensive plan, it is considered to be, what again, Jill? Last time.
In the future land use map.
First of all, where did the change come? Did the staff recommend the change, or did the change come from the council? And if so, what do we know about that?
I don't think. Do you want me to take that? Okay. Yes, it was a recommendation through the staff. Mhm.
Okay, fine. Do we know how many two-family dwelling units there are in town?
Existing
Yeah,
two-family dwelling
yeah.
units? I believe the census does separate them out from single-family homes and from multifamily. Off the top of my head, I can't give you a number. It's not a huge number.
And just to chime in on that, that would be very, very difficult to determine. Is the reason why a lot of the two families in Narragansett are condoed.
Okay.
So it may show up as a one-family. You could look at the tax assessor, and it may show up as two one-families, although it was at one point a two-family.
So we don't know, I guess if the council agreed to do this, do we have a sense for how many non-conforming uses would be created?
I don't believe we'd be creating non-conforming uses. Well, yes, okay.
It would be.
Making two-family dwellings prohibited in the R10 and the R20, where they exist already, they'd become legal non-conforming.
Right, but we don't know how many they are.
Correct. And to chime in on that.
True.
A lot of those non-conforming two families are already non-conforming. This is the reason why is except for the newer ones that are on 20,000 square feet, for instance, the one on Boston Neck Road.
Yeah.
Most of the two families are on substandard lots below the 20,000 square feet, because they're pre-existing non-conforming prior to 1989, whenever our zoning. They're not new non-conforming, they're already non-conforming. If we didn't do anything, they would be non-conforming.
Got it, okay. Do we know how many substandard lots, or like we've done in the R10s, the R10As, and the R20s, do we know how many substandard lots of record there are in the R40s and the R80s?
So I don't have the number, Mr. Callahan, but I did the exact same analysis for this, for R40 and R80, just so I could visually see it. I don't have that number off the top of my head. The thing with R40 and R80, by way of example, with R80, we have an entire section of town which is known as the Chafee Preserve, which is in an
I've seen it.
R80
Yep,
zone,
I've
but
seen
they're
it.
all individual lots.
Yeah,
So
I've
it
seen
would
it.
require me to go through and pull, and not all of them, some of them are actually privately owned, so I'd have to go through and hand review and pull each one of those.
But is it fair to say there are quite a few?
You would have to define quite a few. I mean, we could look at it offline, not nearly as many as this, no.
Could you,
Can you,
Can you-
Tom, can you do me a favor? Can you direct,
I'm trying to get, I am directing this. It may not seem that way to you, but I am, Mark, I'm sorry.
I would ask that you expedite it, please.
Well,
Because this is broadening, and I agree.
it's not, I'm just,
I have the floor. You're broadening the discussion to a discussion that we need to have. Right now, we need a stopgap. We know this is a first step. We need to review this with time. We don't have that time here. So I'm asking everybody to focus in on this, the immediacy of this.
I am focusing on this. The language in your memo from last month, Mike, there was a reference to, and I couldn't figure out if it was new language or existing language. It was in the reference to 12, what would I presume would be a new 1224? Is that right?
Where are we? Show me.
I don't think I have, do I have the memo from last month in my file?
I believe.
I don't.
Heidi put both memos in the packet.
I don't see mine in here. That's the reason why I asked. If you've got one handy, I can take a quick look at it. No, I'm sorry, this does not have the language for the ordinance language itself. I'm sorry, that's what I'm looking for.
Okay, so where are we going to? To the ordinance?
1224, the 1220, the new language for 1224?
It's page 5 of the
Please
draft
speak in.
Okay,
ordinance.
thank you.
If we could speak into the microphone so everybody can hear us.
All right, so it's page 4 of the draft ordinance, it's under section 3. Thank you. And it's actually page 5, starts at the bottom of page 4. Sorry, I should be on. What exactly are you interested in there?
I'm sorry, Mike, I have the memo from March 19th. I have two memos from March 19th. I do not have the memo. I have a memo from the 13th and the 19th, but I don't have the memo from last month.
It would be in the ordinance.
Right.
So you should have a copy of the ordinance in your packet.
Don't have a copy of the ordinance in my packet.
Oh, well, let me give you that.
Thank you. Thank you, Mike. This is what I'm looking for.
All right.
So under 1220, under proposed 12, this is proposed 1224?
Page
No,
5.
1224 exists. There's proposed language at the bottom. It's in underline.
That's what I thought, okay. So for any substandard, for this particular ordinance that we're considering right now, any substandard lot of record that is in a District A, District B overlay district Notwithstanding whether it was an 80 or 40, you couldn't build on it, couldn't build a two-family house on it?
I'm sorry, say the question again?
I gotta read this.
Utilities under 1224-1E1.
Yeah, right.
In order to be considered for approval, lots located in soil limitation districts A and B must be served by public water, sewer, or other utilities, because they're high water limitations. So if you're in an R80, R40, not served by water or sewer, you cannot put, this ordinance would not allow you to put a two-family building in there, is that correct?
Hey, Mike, I read that as substandard, on a substandard lot.
Right, that's what I meant.
Yeah.
That's what I meant.
Yeah,
Not on the sub, that's correct.
not on a conforming lot.
Right, but not on a substandard lot.
Okay, where are we going?
I just wanted to be sure, so the note, well, I guess what I'm saying is, there are areas within R40s and R80s that are carved out by this language, because they are NAs, they're NA, right?
So do you have an amendment you want to make to this?
I might in a minute, I just want to be sure I understand what we got, Mark, excuse me.
I'm going to, again, ask everybody to bring this back to the conversation.
We're being asked about the memo that's in front of us, Mark.
Yeah?
And I'm not sure, I want to be sure that I understand. You may understand it well, but I want to be sure I understand what's here, okay? So let me ask you this. Why would we not, instead of, we have the zones 10, 10A, and 20, all have language in section 3 that indicate that those are areas where we're looking to put additional density. So I understand why the town feels it needs to move on this right now. Why would we not, instead of not permitting it at all and being inconsistent with how the languages and the district definitions are in the language of section 3, why wouldn't you require a special use permit in every instance instead of not permitting it in 3 zones?
In the higher density zones, we have sewer and water
Correct.
primarily, okay? It's not 100%. In the lower density zones, R40, R80, by and large, they don't have sewer and water. Development is limited by the ability of a septic system and the ability potentially of a well to serve that property. These are self-regulating sorts of elements. So in what our big concern is here, and the numbers prove it out, is that in the areas where sewer and water access is readily available, there is a great potential to have an increased, significant densification based on the removal of our ability to set a lot area. The General Assembly has taken that away. So the biggest concern, the vast majority of the concern, is in the area that is sewered, because you can't call, on a one case-by-case basis, you can't say that sewerage service or water accessibility, potable water accessibility, is a limiting factor. In the big picture, it can be, and this is one of the motivators for drafting this ordinance, that when you look at the colored version of these maps that are on the screen, you can see that it would be very possible for a very significant densification in the areas served by sewer and water that could be significantly, very significantly impacted. Though the R40 and R80 zones, by and large, and it's not 100%, are self-regulating. They need to have enough space to put your septic system in and to drill a well. And they are larger lots. So physically, additional structure could be accommodated more easily, it's just because there's more land area. So we had to draw a line somewhere. We drew a line based on the future land use map, which divides the town, the residential designations in the town between moderate high and moderate low. And moderate low encompasses the R40, R80. Moderate high encompasses the R20, R10, R10A. So in order to get to address what has the greatest significance and potential, we decided to make that distinction. We feel it's defendable and it is reasonable.
Okay, and I guess this will be my last comment, and then you can do what you want to do, Jim. Mark, excuse me. My read of the flume and my read of the kind of the district definitions are, it says on page 28, these residential designations for the residential high and moderate density neighborhoods are also traditionally designed in that they would be walkable, serviced by bus transportation, et cetera. They pose opportunities to incorporate units that are more affordable, including deed-restricted homes to help the town's 10% low moderate income housing goals. There may be opportunities to subdivide oversized lots or add an accessory unit. The town has the discretion to review these proposals on a case-by-case basis. Are you saying that the last sentence is no longer true?
Read the last sentence again.
The town has the discretion to review proposals on a case-by-case basis.
Of course it's true. Why are you implying that it is not?
Only because you reference back to the changes that the state made in terms of minimum lot sizes. That's the only reason I raise it, Mike. Because if that language remains to be true, then again, without being an expert on any of this, it would seem to me that the more prudent thing to do would be to require a special use permit in every instance.
Requiring a special use permit
For a
does
two-family,
not,
I'm sorry, I interrupted, I'm sorry, Mike.
requiring a special use permit does not negate the ability, under the way the new state law is drafted, to assert that a two-family house is a permitted use. A special use permit use is a permitted use that needs to be approved under criteria, but it's not a prohibited use. So the concept of having a special use permit assigned to the R10, R10A, and R20 doesn't respond to the immediacy of the concern here. It has to be, it has to be black and white. We can't be working in the gray.
I'm sorry, okay. I'm missing something, Mike. The gray is what?
I apologize for using colloquialism. I'm saying in an area where special use permit is the standard, if we were to just make the two-family dwellings allowed by special use permit in our 1020 and our 10A, that would, and we set a lot requirement, it would be ineffective because it's superseded by the new state law that says you cannot set a lot standard, a lot area standard, excuse me. So we are forced, because of the somewhat narrow syntax of the state law that was passed last year, to take this action. We don't like taking this action, but we feel as though we need to protect the town, particularly the town budget as it relates to the cost of upgrading and retrofitting major utilities. So we have to do this now. We're hoping that we can take this out and put something better and more clear and specific and workable into place to replace it sometime, to allow for two-family dwellings to be permitted in the R10, R10A, and 20 at some point in the future. But right now, we're looking at a very daunting concern about the prospect of having significant increase in development that we have no control over.
Thank you.
Anybody going to add to the conversation very quickly and reiterate, based on my conversation, my private conversations with each of you, or not so much private, and the list we're developing of things we need to look at, most of them come out of this new legislation. We need to understand what our carrying capacity actually is, especially in the smaller non-conforming lots that are sewer and water filled. At this point in time, people come in and say, can I get a water and sewer hookup? You come in, I already have one. Well, yeah, but you're looking for another one. Yeah, but I have one. And how many more have ones can we have? We don't know. So this I see as a first step. I don't see this as a closed discussion at all. I think we have to go revisit this, and we have to revisit this in a time frame and a manner that we can actually soberly and logistically address it. If we don't, this is by right. So is it perfect? No. As staff pointed out, it's not something we want to do. I mean, planning to me is not restrictive. It's not defining. It is more looking at a vision and helping that growth go in that vision. It's been changed, and the world has changed, and we're going to have to address it. We're going to have to address it incrementally before we can address it strategically. And the questions, Tom, you asked are great. They're strategic questions. But tonight, we've got to act logistically and tactically. So, Rupert, you said you want to address?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to move that we amend the proposed ordinance so that the low and moderate provision is moved from 30 years to 99 years.
If to just comment on that, well, do I have a motion?
I moved it.
Okay, you moved it?
I'll second.
Seconded? Okay.
I'll second.
So discussion is open on it. If recollection serves me, we started out at 99, and the decision was to try to go to 30 to add some sort of a carrot in lieu of the fact that there is nothing in any of these ordinances that is a motivation to do anything but bring more investors in town. I would argue, seriously argue, that the way this is written and the allowances for investors, that there is going to be major pressure on the housing stock in Narragansett in the other direction than affordable. And so the idea was, let's try to at least put a carrot out there of 30 and see if we can attract people. Because right now, this is just, don't pass go, don't collect $200, build big, and it's really an investment type of thing rather than any kind of affordable type thing. So I think just as discussion, that was the background, and correct me if I'm wrong, anybody, okay?
Yeah, can you tell me why 99 years? It just seems, I mean, I was an independent business guy
Yeah,
for
so-
50 years. 99 years is a long time.
So the state law limits it to 99 years?
Yep.
It can't be more than 99 years?
Yeah.
And I guess my experience while we've been in town is that the ones at 30 years are disappearing. So we had more affordable units 20 years ago than we do today.
Yeah, if I can chime in. Doctor, it's the way the law is written, and it's this language that we've been wrestling with since 1991 when they passed the law, that it says that all deed-restricted affordable housing shall be deed-restricted for a period of 99 years or any period of time exceeding, but not less than 30 years, that's agreeable by the town and the developer. So it was written with the intent of having negotiation between the town and the developer. And I guess in some instances, 30 years seems just right and fine. Other instances, I'll give you an example and you'll remember it well, Clock Point, Cape Jory. One of the things the planning board placed on that was a restriction that it has to be, those units have to be affordable for 40 years. So we wanted, because it was being done by the Narragansett Housing Authority, we wanted to make a statement there that 30 years isn't enough. We want a little bit more there. So And some communities, we haven't done it yet, but I know other communities around the state have exercised the right to 99 years. But it's the way the law is written, and it's really up to the board in that 30-year to 99-year window, what is appropriate. And case by case, it can vary. So just, kind of background.
Yeah, I think, the fact that we're running out of the 30-year stock that we have, but there are people out there who are investors, and it just seems 99 years is forever. I mean, I'm an old guy, I don't think I'll hit 99, but it's a, right, it's a long time.
Rupert told me you were already 99.
Getting close.
Tom, you looked like you wanted to add something?
No, I just wanted to be sure that it was clear that the minimum is 30 years. It doesn't have to be 99. The minimum is, that by the state, is 30 years.
Yeah.
And I'll just say one other thing, and just asking around in a few places, both for-profit and nonprofit developers, the industry standard seems to be 30 years, for what it's worth.
So my question then, staff and everybody, and Tom's perspective, I think was great. Are we better off wording this as, instead of saying 99 years, wording it as no less than 30, and that gives room for negotiation from the staff involved in it? Is that a better perspective?
If negotiations happen.
If they do. But where it's no less than 30 leaves the door open for saying, well, we're telling you this is.
Well, no one would come in with more than 30. They didn't have to, the developer.
Right.
Michael, why do we pick 40 years for the Clark?
I think
Who
it
did we come
was,
up with that number?
I think it was because it was a publicly developed, it was going to be a publicly developed property. The town owned the land and was selling it to Narragansett Housing Authority at a pretty nice rate. I think it was $10,000 per unit. So they had 40 units, so we sold it to them for $400,000. And we wanted to, because the town had some skin in the game, we wanted to assert that, okay, Narragansett Housing Authority has to step it up and make a little bit more commitment, which they didn't have any objection to either. Mr. McLaughlin didn't say he didn't negotiate that. He was satisfied with it right up front. So I think it had to do with the fact that it was town property that was being transferred at a very reasonable rate in order to get 40 units of affordable housing. And that just showed a little bit more commitment.
But after 40 years, it's still town property. We own it, right?
No.
They were
no,
all sold.
No,
to
yes,
individual
that's right.
owners.
And we turned the land over to the housing authority.
Yeah, the land is
And so we don't own the land. The housing authority now the individual condominium owners own it as the land is owned in common
in common.
by the
Okay.
40 unit owners. And they are full.
So if it was 99 years, you can negotiate it down, Michael?
No, it's something that has to go on record at the point at which the development is approved. So you guys go through the approval process of a development plan, and at the end of it, there's a final approval that's granted, and one of the conditions of that would be deed restricted for X number of years, somewhere between 30 and 99, and that goes on record. The deed restriction for each of the condominium units will incorporate that deed, that timeframe in their recordings when the property is transferred.
I'm going to rephrase Jerry's question. Is the staff handcuffed? I'm sorry, is the staff handcuffed if it's 99 years?
In what way? I'm not sure what you
In
mean.
that,
Yes, so the answer to that is yes.
I suspect it.
And just to another.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, another practical issue why it's 30 years, Doc, or everyone is, the banks give out 30-year mortgages. So, this is ultimately, even units, people have to go to Rhode Island Housing or a lender in order to get a mortgage. So banks like to see the restrictions. It's easier to get financing if the restrictions equal the term of a regular mortgage. That's where 30 came from. Where 99 came from, I don't know, but that's the practical reason why it's used, 30 is used by developers because it's just easier to get mortgages, and that's the industry standard. But there's no magic number to 30, 40, 50. But as Rupert said, if you do 30, it's easier to sell now, but they roll off. You know, you're seeing, especially during the boom of early 2000s, when the affordable housing law changed, you're going to see a ton in the next 5 years start rolling off in the state of Rhode Island. So it's a policy decision. There's no really right or wrong answer. Easier to sell at 30. However, the longer the time frame, obviously the more the housing stock stays affordable.
Mr. Chairman, not to belabor it, 30 years from now, I won't be around, but 30 years from now, we'll be in the same situation, and there'll be less opportunities for creating affordable units.
Okay. So, again, the motion on the floor is to change it from 30 to 99 years. Tom, any comments before we move on the motion?
No.
Okay. Rupert, anything you want to add on your motion? Jerry?
No,
Doc? No. Okay, so there's a motion.
I'll second that motion.
You seconded. All those in favor of changing the time frame from 30 years to 99 years? Say aye.
Aye.
Aye, two. Anybody opposed? No. So, all right, the motion gets defeated. 3-2.
So,
Okay. It doesn't get supported.
So, Mr. Chairman, I have a motion to move the recommendation to Town Council adopt the zoning amendments regarding two-family dwellings, duplexes, multifamilies. This motion incorporates the background and findings from March 13, 2024 memorandum from Mike DeLuca. In particular, with the motion, I want to emphasize these findings from the memorandum. 45% of lots in the R10, R10A are substandard, and over 86% of the lots in R10, R10A are not large enough for duplexes by right as of December 2023. 52% of the lots in R20 are substandard, and 56% of lots in R20 are not large enough for duplexes by right as of December 2023. Combined, there's more than 6,000 lots in R10, R20 alone that were not large enough in December 2023 for duplex by right. The new state laws impact the way that Narragansett can permit duplexes. If the previous provisions for duplex development were retained, the result has the potential to significantly increase the density in R10, R10A, and R20 neighborhoods, as well as on many substandard lots in R40 and R80. Such redevelopment and development without review could be inconsistent with the neighborhood character and inconsistent with the comprehensive plan. As the memo states, the town engineer has determined that the town's water supply is already stressed during droughts and higher summer demands. The stress on water capacity would be exacerbated with substantial increase in population resulting from increased density from redevelopment and new development of numerous duplexes. Further, new renovations and new development to take place, increasing residential density, the capacity at wastewater treatment facilities could be surpassed. The engineer finds that preventing duplex development in R10, R10A, and regulating R20, R40 would promote controlled management of the town's water and wastewater facilities with respect to capacity. And with that, I move the ordinance be sent to town council with recommendation for approval. And I think in our cover memo, sending it, I think it would be important to note that we're anticipating the state's accessory dwelling unit legislation will change and that will have the potential to create duplex style units in these smaller lots too. So.
And also what's coming is tiny homes, trailers, and modular homes, so. Okay, motion is seconded. All those in favor of carrying this through, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
No.
Thank you, Tom. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to just go on the record with an explanation of my vote, if I could. There is clear language, in my judgment, having reviewed, prepared for the meeting, there's clear language in the definition of the districts that suggests that R10, As, R20s, 10, 10As, and 20s, the districts essentially envision additional density being driven into those districts. Not the same in R40s and R80s. I think it's clear there are areas in R40 and R80 neighborhoods around town that are comprised of substandard lots that are just as dense as there are in R10 and R20s. And the potential unintended consequence of this action is to drive further density in those areas on substandard lots of records. So if you go a little deeper, and I know I've seen the language in the comp plan, and I think we all need to go to school as a board on the issues of water and sewer here in town, and I think people have said that to you, Mark. But if you go to the town's existing water supply plan, done by Jeremy and Associates, there's language in there that says it would appear that Narragansett's water system supplies are adequate to meet the existing and future demands for the 5 and 20-year planning periods. Page 4, volume 1. So to me, there's some, and then if you take one step back, and you say, okay, if I looked at this map tomorrow, and I ruled out in the residential areas R10s, R10As, R20s, I ruled out anything in an R40 and an R80 that's in an overlay district, in a high water table overlay district that can't be developed, I'd say what's left. And from an outside perspective, it looks like what Narragansett is doing is essentially, in my judgment, potentially overreacting instead of doing something a little bit more thoughtful. I understand this board feels pressure to act now, your words, not mine, tactically, not strategically, because we don't have time to act strategically. I'm not sure that's true. If I were to say what's driving this right now, it seems to me what's driving this is academic rentals, short-term rentals, seasonal rentals, all of which are significant factors in this town. If I were going to reframe this issue, and I think there are some ways to reframe this issue, I'd spend some time doing that with the University of Rhode Island and the state. So I don't know that it's helpful to act tactically and not strategically at this point in time.
So to add to that conversation and to exasperate the problem, those capacity studies were done before of these changes, and that's the problem. And in meeting with each and every one of you individually, you might be shocked that the first thing all of you said that we need to look at is our infrastructure based on this. And that's why I'm saying this is probably a stopgap.
I think sewer is the issue, Jim. Mark, excuse me. I think sewer is clearly an issue, particularly sewer on the north end. I think water is a little different issue.
It may be. But the fact of the matter is, we're not going to be able to make solid decisions until we get a handle on that. Thank everybody. Okay. Next item on our agenda is actually not an item, and that is the pre-application for the comprehensive permit for 8 units. So we will move to a 2-lot minor subdivision, plot NF, lot 21159. That is actually not Meadow Woo, right? It's Meadow Sweet Road, is it?
Meadow Rue.
Meadow who?
It's Meadow Rue, I believe.
Is it Rue? No, it is Rue, okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. I don't know why I had it down as a note, so.
So you guys
All right.
want to
So that's section D
Siri does.
in our D. If we could. So the owner wishes to convert 3 lots, existing lots, to accommodate 1 existing home and a new home. And while it may seem like a simple matter, when our discussions, the technical part of it becomes a little interesting. So I'll let the applicant address things, and I'm going to go to the chair first, to the staff first, to explain the technical parts of this, and then I'll go to the board. If you could introduce yourself and,
Yeah, hello. Yeah, my name is Jim Flynn, land surveyor. I did the surveying on the project. Basically, Mike wrote up some stuff here. You guys probably have a copy of this as well. There's 3 record lots, 6,000 square feet apiece. Under new enabling act, the demerger, you got to do a yield plan and a few other items. Anyways, it falls under the consensus that it would be able to be demerged into one 6,000 square foot lot. But what we have here is we have 3 record lots totaling 18,000 square feet. So what the applicant wants to try to do is demerge it into 6,000 square feet per the Enabling Act. But on top of that, then we want to realign those lots and have one lot as 10,400 square feet and the other one, 10,600 square feet, and the other one at 7,400 square feet. So we would have a 6,000 square feet lot that we could build on, which would be substandard, which theoretically you could do. And we're going to end up with a lot that's 7,400 square feet, which would be substandard as well, a little bit bigger than 6,000 square feet, which would need zoning for frontage. And under some of the new regs with the hardscape and stuff like that, it would need a relief on hardscape on the existing lot with the existing house. I have, I don't know if you guys, I have bigger plans if you guys wanted to take a look at some full size. Oh, okay. Yep, that's good.
Is that big enough?
Yeah, I can see that. But yeah, that's the proposed subdivision in the end, 7,400 square feet, and that's the existing conditions plan right there with 18,000 square feet. The house is splitting over the one of the record lots, and it's not really clean at all with the 6,000, so it just doesn't really work out very well. And it's really to the north. It's 3.5 feet off the property line, the existing house as it is. So the proposal would be to make it 7,400 square feet, the reason being with the new zoning on the side yard, on the most restrictive, without getting into the 5% modification and stuff like that. The new side yards are now 12 feet as opposed to 10. So I went with 12 and change to make it conform to one of the strictest side yard setbacks. And that's about it.
It hasn't been done yet.
Any questions?
So, unfortunately, it isn't, that's about it, because I want to go to the staff, because there are nuances in doing this, so.
Okay, so this is the whole new world of subdivision per the last year's changes in subdivision law provided to us by the General Assembly. So up until December 31st, those 3 6,000 square foot lots in an R10 zone were considered merged, partially because the house overlaps one of the lot lines, and partially because it doesn't exceed 20,000 square feet. Had there been a 4th lot owned by the Breddings, then they could have potentially just divided it into two 12,000 square foot lots. But they have 18,000 square feet. That's not big enough to have two 10,000 square foot lots, clearly. And that was the way the regulations in the world worked from the 1960s all the way to 3 months ago. The state law, and Heidi passed out something that you should all see. It's listed as item D2.
D2.
The language that I've highlighted in that, I should have put it up on the screen, my apologies. I'll read it, it's one
It's a
sentence.
separate piece of paper, guys. It was on the table. It should be under the graphics.
Yeah. It's this one here with the highlighted text. And it reads, "The merger of lots shall not be required when the substandard lot of record has an area equal to or greater than the area of 50% of the lots within 200 feet of the subject lot as confirmed by the zoning enforcement officer." I didn't put it into the PowerPoint, but Mr. Flynn did survey the 200-foot radius. He provided us with a map. It looks as though if everything reads correctly, there are 36 lots within 200-foot radius, and 18 of them are 6,000 square feet or less. So that it meets the 50% rule. However, one element that needs to be undertaken is they need to apply to the building official to essentially verify Mr. Flynn's work. And what would happen in that case is the unmerger of the lot here to the right. This would be deemed a standalone buildable lot under the new law. This lot here these two lots would combine for 12,000 square feet, supporting the single-family house, not out of compliance. The fact that the house is right up against the side lot setback is not applicable here. It's an existing condition. So that's step one that the applicant has to do. They haven't done it yet, but we wanted to get this in front of you for a visual. And this is as much, let me tell you, this is as much of a training exercise for me as it is for an educational exercise for you folks. So we're still got the training wheels on. I'm moving very slowly here. It's entirely possible that this sort of thing might not come to you in the future. But let me go through the rest of the discussion on it. So step one is, this is kind of an unofficial step. Official step one will be for them to submit the application. Our building official now has an application form and a checklist of things that need to be submitted. He has to see it. He has to see that Mr. Flynn has stamped the plans. He attests to the 50% component, and then he will issue an approval on that. Presumably, that all goes through because the numbers look pretty clear to all of us. Once that is done, then what the Breddings have is they have a buildable lot. What makes this a little bit unique is they don't want to build on the 6,000 square foot lot. They want to move the lot line to this alignment here. And in so doing, they would erase this line and this line. Those are the 6,000 square foot lines. And they would put a line here, resulting in 7,400 square feet being left with the house, which leads to another point, and a 10,000 square foot lot that would comply in all ways with the underlying zoning. It's 100 feet wide, it's 100 feet deep. Has no wetlands on it, relatively flat, it's a little bit of a hill there. But there are no physical constraints to the site. What then results is the 7,400 square foot lot is substandard to area. And while Mr. Flynn has provided the sufficient side yard setback, it is also insufficient to lot width. So that would require relief. Because it requires relief, and it's not just, the important thing to keep in mind is that unmerger law is related only to the record lots, the lots that are on record. And the lots that are on record are those lot lines at 6,000 square feet and 12,000 square feet. So as soon as you start moving lot lines, we're in a subdivision. If all you wanted to do is separate out the one lot that's been sitting there as part of the Petaquamsket Lake Shores subdivision since 1940-something, 50-something, whatever it was,
Excuse me.
then that would relieve it. And it would, that would release it, I should say. But now they want to move the line, so it's a subdivision, and it's also a subdivision that's going to have a substandard lot. So it will come to you as a minor subdivision. You will have the opportunity to review it, and you will also be in the position to grant the relief that they are requesting. Now, right now, all I know that they would be requesting would be lot width and area. I don't know about FAR, because now they're shrinking the amount of area that the house is sitting on. So there has to be an FAR calculation. Oh, did you do that, Jim? You did do the FAR calc. And it did come in under the, yeah, for the 7,400 square foot lot? I'm remembering it now, that was was a part of the map that I didn't photocopy here. Yeah, it's on the other one. Less than 10. I don't believe, actually, I'm going to have to take a closer look at the regulation. I'm not sure that I have the authority to grant the zoning relief. I'll ask Steve that question.
A couple of things that come since this is pre-app.
Yeah.
One of the, because you're at 18 and 18, one of the issues is you're unmerging one lot. One of the issues is your other two lots count. Because they are lots within the 200 square foot radius. Because the house, because those have merged, because it's merged by you, I'm just throwing out potential. Because those two lots have merged by use, because the house is on one of the lots, that would be a countable lot in the radius. You don't get to not count, you don't get to not count your own lot.
But the 6,000 square foot lot offsets the oversized lot. Now you have 19 and 19 instead of.
So, I mean, we gotta, and Wayne would have to, and since it's even, Wayne, did you survey, you didn't survey all of these lots, you just took it off the plan?
Well, no, I would say that I could actually say I surveyed that whole piece between all the jobs I've done, and it's all in my database. Yeah, yeah. I have all my data all on one thing with my coordinate geometry.
Really?
In that whole area.
You're gonna have to, I mean,
Wow.
Wayne may ask for that,
Yeah, I mean, I have no problem with that.
Okay.
he may ask for that. So, because.
But I thought I counted all the lots in there. I think there were 36.
Heidi, did we bring the file?
I'd have to look at it again. But
I guess maybe this is an issue for another, I'm just
Yeah.
bringing it up.
Yeah.
Because it's gonna come to Wayne, he's gonna ask me, and we would count.
Thank you.
The house lot is one, that's in the radius, the two lots, the house lot is one in the radius. And secondly, if it's, the thing that the legislature didn't think of is, I call it lot roulette, meaning all these lots are not exactly 6,000 square feet. So is the lot that you're unmerging 5,998, where one of the lots is 6,001?
Show that to him.
I mean, it is unfair, it's not
Yeah, I have a copy of it.
when Wayne's going to be reviewing that, the lot to be merged. So they may ask for additional, he may ask for additional data.
Yeah.
Okay. Like I said, folks, it's a whole new world. Yeah, and I wanted the Breddings to be able to, have this moment with you folks. It's a pre-app, it's an open discussion. And I've already admitted to them what I admitted to you. I'm still learning this. I'm still learning as to whether or not, to answer your question, is this administrative? Because there's a necessity for relief, I'm moving erring on the side of caution to state that I think at this moment it would come to you at prelim with a request under Unified Development Review for those two forms of zoning relief I mentioned, and possibly FAR, but I think Jim did the numbers and they're probably correct.
Mr. Flynn, one of the, is the 200-foot radius off the center lot?
No, he did it off,
It's one lot right now, so the 200-foot radius is 200 feet from the exterior of the one lot.
All three of those lots?
yeah. I'm sorry I didn't put it up on the screen, it would have been easier. So at the moment, what we're looking at is a pre-application so that you can see, Jim used the term yield plan. And we haven't used that term in this town much at all. We've used it as kind of a term of the science. But in some communities, it's a codified term. And what it means is, show us how many lots your property can yield, and then show us how you really want it to lay out. So the yield is the strict layout, and then the more creative layout is what you're hoping to do. And the presumption is, in communities that have it codified, it actually states, if you can yield 10 lots legally under the regulations, then you can show us a 10-lot creative layout that might reduce costs, reduce environmental impacts, make it easier for sewerage and water to be provided. So those are great ideas. And I think at this moment, I'm intending to employ yield plan approach. And I will likely be coming back to you folks at some point in the future to rewrite or expand the text of our subdivision regulations to be able to clarify that yield plan is a good approach now that we have this new provision in the state law that is forcing us to look at unmerger.
Before I go to the board for their comments, I just want to go back to Steve. If he gets to unmerge this, then he has to basically go back and recalculate how many of those lots, because he then becomes part of those lots. Am I wrong or right there? And that's really probably less to do for us.
So one of, the state law works well when you have two lots. You have a nice house that doesn't touch.
Right.
Doesn't work so well with three lots. And also the statute says greater than 50%. So 18 and 18 is not greater than 50%, it's 50%. So again, these are all issues, it's really not for you guys. It's really for Wayne.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask.
The applicant and Mr. Flynn to work through this, but
Okay.
that is certain.
That's just equal to.
So if it does come back to us, that will all be clarified before it comes back to us, I'm presuming.
It says equal to.
Gentlemen? Yes or no?
I'm sorry, please.
I said, so, Steve, if this was to come back to us, that issue will be clarified
Yeah.
before it comes back to us.
Wayne would issue a denial or an approval.
Okay.
If it's a denial,
Then we have to deal with that.
you guys, if it's an approval, then, then the process will start.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, gentlemen.
Yeah, so we have 18,000 square feet. I'm just a simple, humble country doctor. So you can't put a line down the middle. That's not allowed, right? Because then you have two lots that are less than 10,000. So the numbers that you gave us are like 10 plus and 7 plus. So why don't you have 8,000 and 10,000? I guess that's my question.
Oh, why not round it to the easiest? Yeah. Oh, I know the answer.
Yeah, is that acceptable? You created a very complicated,
No, you could make a
way of
10,000
doing this,
square foot lot. This lot here is 106 feet wide, and it's 10,600. If this line moved over 6 feet, then you'd have 10,000, you'd have a 100 by 100 lot, and the side setback would be 18 feet. That's all doable, but this is doable too, and although I get your inclination there, Doctor, is reduce the amount of nonconformity on this lot by moving 600
yeah,
square feet
you're
more.
trying to achieve 10 for each, but you don't have the square footage.
So
You
make
got
this
10
lot
and you
as
got,
big as
you have 8,
possible.
you know?
Right. So if the lot is over here, the line is
That's
over here,
simplistic and probably
You got-
won't work.
a slightly less non-conforming lot at 8,000 square feet, and a perfectly conforming lot at 10,000 even. That's a good point. I didn't mean to answer the question for you, Jim, or
Oh,
Nicole.
that's okay. Well, the owner is here, Nicole, and she owns the lot, and she wants to build her own house on the bigger lot, and so she wants to get the biggest piece that she can possibly get for her own personal use, to live there. She lives in the house next door.
If you could do us a favor, if you could speak into the microphone, please.
Yeah, thank you.
I'm Nicole. I'm the owner of the property. So yeah, my family and I currently live in this house scene, and we're just looking to build something that can accommodate us. We have 2 young children, myself and my husband. So we're just looking to stay in Narragansett. It's difficult to buy in Narragansett right now. So yeah, we're hoping to build a home that can suit our family and stay in Narragansett. That's our goal. Thanks.
Jerry? No, I'm good. Rupert? Tom? Staff, anything to add?
Just that we're going to be working through this with Nicole and Jim, and obviously with Mr. Pimentel as he reviews the unmerger request. And I'll be reporting to you on this. If it doesn't have to come to you, I will definitely let you know. And if it does, you'll be seeing it fairly soon because take away all the technicalities of it all. It's a pretty densely developed neighborhood. We've all been down those roads, and a 7,400 square foot lot or an 8,000 square foot lot would not be out of character at all with the neighborhood, certainly not a 10,000 square foot lot. So that's the least of our concerns, but we've got to get through the technical legal side of this. And as I said at the outset, we're still learning how to make these regulations work. So working with the good folks here, and I'll be suggesting that they pursue their unmerger request first before they fill out an application and submit for subdivision.
The next item on the agenda is Knowles Camp, tax assessor's plat, what's that? E1, thank you. Tax assessor's plat, S1, lot 291. This is part of the Knowles Camp master plan. I won't be a Rhode Islander and tell you, well, it used to be, but, so Unit 87 was demolished in 2009. It was approved, there are floor plans within the Knowles Camp master plan. It was approved for a D-style 720 square foot plan. And then a 90-foot variance was, and special use was granted. And a request is to modify, again, to a floor plan B504 square foot. So it's being reduced in square footage, but the type B floor plan is slightly larger than its standard master plan. All right, but smaller than the previous. So it's, the reconstructed building does not result in an increase in the existing degree of any. This is on page 2 of 3. Dimensional nonconformity, the footprint of the building or structure not exceed, extend, or enlarge greater than 25% of the existing building footprint as of October 89. Exterior appearance of the reconstructed building remains substantially the same. So these are comments from staff, and I'll let them go into them deeper. Is there anybody for the applicant? It's true. Is your microphone on? Is there a red light? If you can press that little button.
Good evening. I'm Howard Troop. I'm one of the owners of Knowles Camp, and I'm here today with Dave Zuglio, who is our project manager and builder.
Do you want to fill in details that I didn't put out there?
You have all the details. I'd be glad to answer any questions that you might have.
Staff, you want to add anything to this?
No, the only thing that we wanted to just put out there is that we did talk to Wayne about the hybrid. We're calling it a hybrid B because, like you stated earlier, the floor plan is a little bit bigger. I believe it's by a foot or two in width. It's supposed to be 14 based off the master plan, but this one's a little bit bigger. But we did consult with the building official, and he said that he was okay with that due to it being approved as an E, which is a much greater footprint.
Yeah, so the original, size was allowed to expand, and now this model that you're planning to build is slightly smaller?
Correct.
Yeah. So that takes care of that question. And I trespassed, went up to the site, and it's it's very interesting. I only been back in there years ago. I hadn't been back there recently. So it's very interesting, interesting site. I think it's that guy right there. Okay. Yeah, I don't have any other, you have you have an association, right? Or you're the owner of all of this?
There's two of us that are the owners. There is an association, but we are not affiliated with that association. They just decided on their own to organize themselves.
Oh, okay. So when somebody wants to do, they come to you and
Correct.
you agree or you don't agree?
Correct.
Okay. All right. That's good. It's very simple. Yeah.
If I can jump in here and correct me if I'm wrong. These are seasonal.
Correct.
They can't be leased out.
Correct.
So it's owner occupied. It is set from April, May,
May 1st to Columbus Day.
and then everything's shut down.
Correct.
Okay. So, yeah, go ahead.
The other thing I was interested in, are they heated?
Some people have heat in their house, yes.
Yeah, those
Usually mini splits, heating and air conditioning
cold,
with a mini split, you know.
yeah.
Not any-
Get that cool breeze off the ocean there, okay.
I'm good.
So do you have like hurricane standards or tie downs, or how does
Yes.
that work?
They have to meet the 120-mile wind zone.
I'll speak into the, thank you, sir.
These are, I sell modular homes. Modular homes like any other home, okay, they have to meet all the requirements. And these are all tied down with the wind zone, yes. They have to meet all those requirements. And what happens is, there's a third party that stamps the plans of these buildings. The third party then goes to the building inspector. We're waiting for that plan. Once he gets that, then he'll give the final approval. But that has all the wind requirements in it, and, you know, and so on and so forth. Yes.
Thank you.
Anything else?
I have nothing.
Staff, you want to add anything?
Yes, also in 2009, when it was demoed, it was 30 feet away from the wetland. They were approved to go 10 feet closer, but in talking with Mr. Zoglio, they are going to be going to the original location in 2009, which was 30 feet away from the wetland.
Redirect on the board? Anybody have, Doctor, any more additional questions or comments? Jerry? No. Rupert? Tom?
Ready to move.
Okay, do I have a motion?
Do we need completeness on this one? Move the application before us, Knowles Camp Tax Assessor. Plat S-1, Lot 291 is complete and in conformance with the comprehensive plan.
I have a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous?
Then move the application before us, again, Knowles Camp Tax Assessor Plat S1, Lot 291, positively with the staff's comments, recommendations, et cetera, dated March 13th, 2024.
Second?
I have a second.
I seconded it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Good luck to you.
Thank you.
Next piece of business is, I'm sorry, E2 in our playbook. Valarelli, Plot K, Lot 24C, 14 Ashbrook Road. The project is, they're seeking the demolition, dimensional relief, front setback and side setback. We're going to construct a 47 by 6 foot front porch with stairs, 28 by 28 L-shaped rear addition, 14 by 14 rear deck with stairs, and rear sunroom. They want to increase existing bedrooms from 3 bedrooms to 4. Approximate lot coverage is 23.9%. It is in an R10 zone. Front yard setback, the proposed is 18.8 feet, required is 25 feet. And left side setback, they're proposing 9.8, required is 10 feet. My understanding from your application that all this work is to accommodate a family member.
Correct. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for being here, and thank you for having us. I'm Judy Valarelli, and I'm here with my husband, Jim Valarelli. We're the owners of 14 Ashbrook. Jim just had eye surgery, so I'm up here speaking because he can't see. This is for our 33-year-old disabled daughter who has refractory epilepsy, secondary to a brain injury at age 4. She just turned 33 last week. We need, and it's been an increasingly difficult time sometimes getting her in through the front door. We need a 360 relief for a wheelchair to be able to get her into the house. I think we meet all the criteria. We submitted the building permit and we were denied the building permit, but we met all of the criteria for everything except for the setback of the front porch. And the front porch is almost pivotal to this whole thing because we need that to be able to get her into the house. And that's why we're here.
Staff?
There's nothing else to add.
Does this meet FAR? It wasn't in here?
Yes, it does meet FAR. I believe
Yes.
they're at .28, I think it's .3. And Ms. Valarelli also, there's also the left side yard setback. We want to make sure that that's also known. It's .2 feet.
0.2 feet.
0.2
Yes.
feet, right, and 6.8 feet in the front.
Anybody, Joe?
And I do want to say that this is our second home, and soon, when I retire, I hope this year, it will be our home. And so we don't rent it seasonal to students, to anybody. It's our home. It's not a rental property.
Joe, you look like you might have wanted to add something, no? Yes? No, all set, thank you. Okay. Doc, questions, concerns, issues?
Yeah, this front, the opposite side? The front house where they're going to get the porch and there's no ramp there. So
There will be, on the end. That's where the ramp will be, near the garage, right there. Yes, right there.
They look like steps to me.
Right, those are steps now, but that will be a ramp, and that should have been corrected.
Yeah,
That's a ramp.
but why didn't you show it as a ramp to start with?
I didn't do that picture.
All right, okay. Well, you know where hopefully you know where I was going. I mean, you're asking for a variation in the rules, regs that and anytime somebody has disability or needs a ramp or whatever, obviously we go along with it.
Yeah.
But not-
Doc, I do have to tell you, though, we are putting in a ramp. However, Jim and I can get her up by backing her up the stairs if we need to, but we can't 360 her around. And that's why we need the 6-foot. We spoke with the doctors
Yeah.
at Ruskin NYU for the wheelchair 360, and we're going for the minimum depth possible, which is 6 feet. We're not going for 8 or 10 or, it's just for efficiency of the 360 for the wheelchair.
Right. But I'm missing the piece there, why that's not shown as a ramp to start with.
Well, Doctor, if I may add, if you wanted to, prior to approval, you could potentially put a condition in that they have to submit revised floor and elevation plans that show that it is going to be a ramp rather than stairs.
Fine. Just, not that you would, I mean, looking, it's really accentuates the house very nicely, the porches, et cetera, and the way you describe that as adding a decking to the right. But it obviously needs a variance to do that. And looking at the houses up and down the street, you're going to come way out. So as long as this is a disability ramp and the requirement then for access, house access, I support it.
And there is precedence on this street. There are other houses that, not disability ramps, but have decks and before those, these are older homes, much older homes. So there is precedence, people have them, but that may be a moot point. We need to do this.
Yep. Yep.
Jerry? I'm good. Rupert?
So I had the same confusion as Doc does about there's stairs in the middle of it and stairs at the beginning of it. So it was confusing to me. But your plan is to put a ramp there? Yeah.
Yes, yes, at the end where the garage is.
That makes a lot more sense.
And not to prolong the discussion, but go back to that overview where you look at the other houses up and down the street there. Yeah, you mentioned that there are places to the left and right. When I went and visited I didn't see a porch. You need this, you're going to get it. I'm just talking here. But if you look up and down the distances, you see all that? They're all the same. So if you were before us and you did not have this need, I couldn't support it. But obviously there is a need and there is a precedence because we've supported ramps and access for a number of other people. So.
Okay, thank you.
Rupert, you set? Okay, Tom?
I'm good.
Okay, I also had the same confusion and question on the ramp. The ramp, are you going to, I take it's going to have an ADA angle
Yes,
to it?
yes, it will meet all ADA standards.
Okay. Style-wise, are you going to try to blend it in as part of the porch? Or is
Yes.
it just going to be a standalone? Okay.
No, we're going to try to blend it in.
Okay.
We will blend it in. And I'm happy to provide, on the back end, a picture of it. Your portal is wonderful, by the way. It's amazingly easy to work with. I can upload a picture. Jim Flynn did our drawings, so I could just ask him to fix it.
Okay, thank you. Anything follow-up from the staff? Doc, follow-up? No? Jerry, follow-up? Rupert, follow-up? Tom, follow-up? Okay. Gentlemen, I need
The motion?
2 motions.
Completeness, move the application before us, Valarelli, tax assessor plat K, lot 24-C is complete and in conformance with the town comprehensive plan.
Seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Unanimous decision.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, no, not yet.
No, you can't get away that easily.
This is the one you actually want.
Okay.
Move the application before us. Valarelli, tax assessor, plat K, lot 24C, positively with the staff's comments, recommendations dated in correspondence March 13th, 2024.
I second that.
I have a seconded. All those in favor? All those opposed? Unanimous decision. Congratulations.
Okay, all right, thank you. Would you like me to turn this off? Okay.
Final agenda item, let me say that so that I can get some smiles out of some people here, is the mixed-use zoning regulation, which is a continuance of what we started last time, discussion, and if we can, we'll take action on it. I'm going to turn it over to the staff.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. This ordinance has been a long time in the making, as well as some of the other things that we've been working on and spoken about earlier this evening. Give you a little history on it. Was that a groan? Oh, no, not that.
Brief history.
Go all the way back to pre-2010, when the planning staff had hired a consultant to write up, to pursue some research into how we might improve the circumstances around affordable housing in the town. And that consultant gave us 4 different draft ordinances for consideration. We brought all 4 ordinances to the planning board at that time, which got support. One of those ordinances was to allow for a mixed-use zone for Boone Street, and just for Boone Street. Well, without getting into all the details, it didn't pass muster. The inclusionary zoning ordinance passed muster, and nothing else. So then we flash forward, and a few years ago, a property owner on Boone Street provided support, applied to submit a draft for a mixed-use ordinance for Boone Street because he owned a property there and he wanted to do mixed-use development there. And that came through process, went all the way through to the town council, and again, it was defeated. So now, you flash forward to just around, I don't know, it was as we were coming out of COVID lockdown, the town established an affordable housing collaborative, which became the Affordable Housing Trust Collaborative. And they were seeking, first year or so, they were pretty much self-educating. And then following that, they were seeking ways to have a strong, valid, significant impact on provision of affordable housing for people in our town. And they were looking at a wide range of different possibilities. One other thing they're working on right now is seeking to find property that may be available, owned by the town, owned by the state, or even private properties that might be donated. But the other thing that they came up with, and they wanted to pursue, was a mixed-use ordinance. And I thought that was kind of unique because mixed-use ordinance doesn't say affordable housing anywhere in it, but they certainly wanted to be the advocates for affordable housing being incorporated within mixed-use zones. And by doing so, they wanted to advocate for mixed-use zoning. So I've been working with them for over a year to try to draft this ordinance. I showed this to you a month ago. Not much has changed in content, but in format and framework, it does look a lot different. So I'm going to go through this. This is the same presentation I gave you last month, so I'm not going to read everything to you. You're here, yeah. But I am going to point out where there were some changes, and then we'll get to looking at the ordinance itself.
Tough crowd.
Yeah, this has always been a tough room. So the purpose is unchanged. Mixed-use development is provided as an option for development in the BB zone. I should say also that with prompting and assistance from Rupert, I managed to draft you a staff report, which Heidi handed out and was on the desk in front of you when you sat down. I'm sorry that I hadn't gotten that out to you earlier. In the hurry to try to make the ordinance look better and read better, I neglected to do the simple thing that I always do with zoning ordinances, and that is write you a staff report. So there is a staff report dated today in front of you. And I wanted to point out that the ordinance has, identifies 10 purposes, and I look at items 7, 8, and 9 as being the key purposes, and I reprinted them on the first page of my memo to you, that, to include dwelling units that provide long-term housing that is affordable. Encourage the development of residential uses, including those that meet the needs of the community as expressed in the comprehensive plan. And also provide areas for economic development in the community and allow for creative development of businesses. So there's more to it than that, as you know. This would be, operationally, this would only be applicable in the BB general business zones. We also have a BA limited business zone. We have a BC waterfront business zone. Would not be applicable in either of those zones, only the BB zones. So where are the BB zones? Well, Boone Street is a BB zone. The 2 blocks where PJ's Pub is, and that's a BB zone. Salt Pond Plaza is a BB zone. The area down near, on Carries, that area there is a BB zone. The area in Bonnet Shores with the bank and the Pelly's Place, all BB zone. So there's more. Those are the ones that come to mind. The definition hasn't changed. Just reminding you, the mixed-use land developments are multi-lot, multi-building development, a larger development that could have numerous structures and could even have, buildings that are not mixed use. Not every building in a mixed-use land development has to be mixed use, but the development itself has to be mixed use. A mixed-use project is more simple and the kind of thing that we envision in our minds. A single building that would have commercial activity on the first floor, could have some commercial non-retail on the second floor, and residential on the second and third floors. No residential allowed on the first. The way these things would be approved would be either as a minor or major land development plan, if it's an LDP, or under development plan review, if it's just a mixed-use project. If any zoning relief is necessary, it would go through unified development review, which means that it would be your authority to grant that relief. They wouldn't be pinballing over to the zoning board and back to you. Again, permitted uses, single-family, two-family, multifamily dwellings. This is in the land use, in the land developments. Nursing homes, assisted living, most retail, personal businesses, professional services. Notable changes. Actually, I took something out of here, and I should have left it there and put a line through it. There were several recreational uses that our work group, and the work group was Rupert and Jerry and 2 members of the Affordable Housing Collaborative. We went through this and we saw certain things that we needed to fine tune. So there were some recreational uses like, Rupert, help me out, racetracks, campgrounds, tent campgrounds, things that you just wouldn't have in a mixed-use development. It wouldn't have enough room for. So we took them out. Moving on, this is somewhat duplicative. One thing that's really important, and we added near the end, because as I told you just a few minutes ago, I'm still learning these new laws. It applies to new developments or adaptive reuse projects which expand the footprint of the structure or does not meet the 50% standard for residential units. So we put adaptive reuse into the ordinances, into our zoning ordinance just a few months ago. And it occurred to me as I was reading that and I was reading this that adaptive reuse can be a mixed-use development. So we had to make certain that there was no need to do both approvals. So in a case where someone is adaptively reusing an existing structure and is not expanding the footprint and is meeting the 50% standard for residential units, that would just go through adaptive reuse. It would not have to go through the DPR or the land development process with you folks as a mixed-use development. If they are not complying with the standards for adaptive reuse, then it comes to you as a mixed-use development. So what I've done is I've drawn a line between the two, and there are certain criteria in play, and all we have to do, case by case, is figure out which category an application drops into. So moving on, mix of uses, commercial uses, first of all, performance standards for any development approved under this regulation would limit commercial uses from 5 a.m. to 11 p.m. because you've got residential attached to you. Compliance with residential noise standards, not commercial noise standards, and limited hours for dumpster retrieval so that people living nearby don't have to hear that. As far as the mix of uses goes, as I just mentioned, street level, commercial use, non-residential uses are permitted in the upper floors except for retail. Commercial use would be allowed up to 45% of gross, I gotta take the L out of there, gross floor area. We've revised the measurement tool from gross leasable floor area to gross floor area. It simplifies the entire calculus. And on residential use, it could be 35 to 65, and you see that's highlighted. In the first draft of the ordinance, it said up to 75%. And then when you got into the incentive section, it said you're going to get up to 75%. Well, there's no incentive. So,
Right, can I stop you on this? Because I know Rupert knows where I'm going on this.
go ahead.
So in one of the bills, and I was never ever want to go to testify, but this was one I actually wanted to do. In one of the bills that is currently pending, they want to eliminate floor area ratio. Okay. So by eliminating floor area ratio, you eliminate our ability under this section to percentage to make floor area. This is the definition of floor area ratio with percentage of commercial, retail, and residential. And this is what.
It's not based on the lot.
No.
These percentages are
They
based
want
against
to.
one another.
They want to eliminate floor area ratio in its entirety. Now, we use floor area ratio in Narragansett regarding structures, but they will eliminate the town's ability to regulate a development based upon floor area ratio. And this is what I said to Rupert before. Chapel View is a prime example of this. When a developer comes in, they don't want to come in and have, without floor area ratio, you want to do exactly what you're doing, is you want to give them flexibility, all right, 35%, 40, and then they can, once the project happens, they would have the flexibility to put the units wherever they want. If floor area ratio is eliminated from the State Enabling Act, we won't be able to do this.
I would disagree.
Well, it says you're regulating, the town's regulating floor area.
But
Under what if the enabling statute doesn't allow us to do it, how can we do it?
because floor area ratio, by definition, defines the amount of building you can build based on the amount of land you're on.
No.
That's the definition of it. I'm sorry if the people in the big white house up there don't understand it, but that is the definition that has been in the lexicon for 50 years or more.
I know, but they're eliminating floor area ratio in its entirety.
So at this point, it's just in the House, there's not even a bill introduced in the Senate?
Okay. So I mean, I would go forward with, obviously, don't let what could happen.
Thank you, because I was about to jump in and say, look, and I've been watching this one carefully, the tea leaves are ugly, but it hasn't happened yet.
So, yeah, I mean, you've got to
we'll
move
deal
forward
with-
with just, and you could still keep the statute, you'd an ordinance, I mean, it would tie developers where, again, they wouldn't come in under floor area, they would say, all right, again, we want to put, we want to put a residential unit here, and a commercial unit here, and a, retail unit here, and therefore you're just regulating unit by unit. The bad part about that is if they want to make a change, they got to come back, which is what Capianotto had to do at Chapel View 37 times, because the way they did, it was a mixed plan development, and every time they made a change,
but this gives you the flexibility, which hopefully we will keep.
In this case, we're using floor area ratio to create affordable housing,
then-
which is in their stated intended goals. So.
And that was my whole point, what I said to you. We get bigger houses and no affordable housing.
Well, I'm glad to learn that the people up in the,
So can I,
the people up there are taking such a wide, expansive view of floor area ratio. At least maybe if they take a little more time, they'll learn what it really means.
so if I could move this along, and if I'm going to add any editorial, I would like to say that if you can find anything in any of this new stuff that says they're interested in affordable housing, I'll buy you dinner. But at this point in time, we can still use percentages, and so let's move forward with this. I think this has been sitting there for too
Yeah.
long. So if we
Yep.
can.
Well, you know, I have nothing more to say about that. Anyway, for the larger ones in mixed-use land developments, there would be an open space component. And there's no floors in open space, so I guess there's no floor area ratio in open space. Another thing that the work group did was on the dimensional standards, which are located on page 5, 6, wait a minute. Sorry, I'm fumbling here. On page 6 of the draft ordinance, we originally had the table that designated the allowance of how many dwelling units you could have per square foot of land. Maybe we can't do that anymore either, I don't know. So the density allowance was going to be, one-bedroom units would need 3,000 square feet of land per unit. 2 to 3 bedroom units would need 5,000 square feet of land, 4 plus 7,000. We added another column to accommodate for low-mod income development, and as you can see, we are granting density relief there. So the requirement of 3,000 square feet of land per dwelling unit, if it's a one-bedroom, drops down to 1,800 square feet. The 5,000 for 2 to 3s goes to 3,000 square feet. And the 7,000 square feet of land for 4 bedrooms goes down to 4,200 square feet. And we ran a bunch of numbers to make sure that this would work out. The incentive residential uses may be increased up to 75%. It used to say in the previous draft, if a minimum of 75% of the proposed residential units are reserved for LMI housing. We felt that that might be too daunting to be reasonable, and we dropped that number down to 50%. So those are the only changes made. Oh, one last change. I think this was Rupert's. Was it you or Jerry?
Maybe Jill.
Somebody said, you know what, how do we feel about mixed-use rental units being short-term rentals? And we said, no, that's not a great idea.
I'll take credit.
Okay, Jerry, all right, there you go. I know it wasn't me. It was not me. So I'm putting down I'm presenting it, but this is the combined work of a lot of great minds and one staff person. So mixed-use residential units we would add in the reference that they cannot be used as short-term rentals at all. Everything else remains the same as it was in draft number 7, which we had been working from, that was drafted in January. So we're hoping to advance this. The Affordable Housing Collaborative has already voted in support of this ordinance. We're hoping to advance this to the town council and request that they schedule a public hearing. Oh, and the last thing I didn't even mention, but is a very important part of this, is that those very unwieldy tables, there were 2 tables, those very unwieldy tables were reduced, thanks to Rupert again. I take no credit for this, although he and I and Jerry were beating our heads against the wall trying to figure out a way to make it work. And we were determined to make the table work because it looked too much like the standard use table in 6.1 of the code. We didn't want people being confused, so we actively sought a way to make it look like a different table. And what we did was we used all the land use codes that are the left-hand-most column in the 6.1, chapter 6.1 table. And all we did is reference the codes. No language, no explanation, just the code numbers. And we fit it all on a page and a half. What that results in is, I did the count today, there are 91 permitted uses by right, 40 by special use permit, and 4 as accessory in the mixed-use land developments. In mixed-use projects, which is the single lot, single building projects, much narrower list of allowable uses, 58 by right, 23 by special use permit, and 1 as accessory. So we really felt we got it right. Thinking about a land development, we're thinking about multiple acres of land, 2, 3, 4 buildings, maybe their own roads. You could have a wide range of uses that could work in that, including open space. But in a mixed-use project, I think we needed to be much more narrow. And I think we went through this list numerous times. We felt like we got it right. And for that reason, we're asking, staff is asking that the board offer up a recommendation for approval. We did the analysis of its compliance with comp plan. We noted that it meets 5 policies and 1 goal of the comp plan. We also made note of its, there were eight elements of, that this ordinance would be consistent with the zoning, the purposes of zoning, I should say, and we cite those in the staff report also. So with that, I will turn it to you folks and ask if you have any questions before we go to any sort of a vote.
Doc, questions, concerns, issues? Jerry?
I'm ready.
Jerry's ready.
So a couple, one is a format issue on page 10 and 11 where the chart breaks.
Yeah.
It's personal business and professional services, that's all one, that's
Oh.
all one row, and it's split, so it just looks a little awkward. And then on
Okay.
section 3.1, zones enumerated, I think it would be good to amend the line where it says including multifamily residential. I think we should strike multifamily, so it just says residential.
Where are we? I'm sorry.
Section 3.1 after the chart. Page 11, sorry.
Oh.
It's the definition you're adding.
Well,
Yeah, sorry.
multifamily residential is possible in a land development.
Right, but so residential could be too, right? So I just was going to strike the word multifamily.
Hold on.
Isn't a mixed-use multifamily?
I know where you're going. This is,
I'm just playing devil's advocate.
this is under zones enumerated. So this is section 3.1 of the code. And it's basically the definition of each of the zones. So under BB zone, the language that's not underlined is the existing language. We'd be adding the sentence that starts within the BB district. Mixed-use development projects are also allowed as an option to provide for village-style development of a mix of uses, including multifamily residential. So, good point here. I might need to wordsmith this because I would argue that in a mixed-use land development, a standalone apartment building that is nothing but residential could work with, being next door to a building that has commercial in it.
What if we added the
It's a
word-
macro mixed use as opposed to a micro mixed use.
Yeah, so what if we said apartments and mixed use? Would that do it?
What are you trying to avoid?
I'm just thinking, so if we have one building where downstairs is commercial and upstairs is residential, you could have a 1-bedroom studio apartment.
Correct.
So that's not multifamily, that's,
Oh, I see.
so it's excluded by the definition, the way it's written.
Jill? You have the floor.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I'm open.
All righty, so on the table, for some reason, maybe the table's in here twice, or maybe I am misreading it, but for use codes on, well, I'm looking at my old copy, I apologize, I have it on page 4, for nursing home, assisted living, independent living. They're labeled right now as 91, 92, and 93. I believe that should be 091, 092, and 093.
Oh, okay.
Because
Yeah.
because the 9s are the accessory structure, so you actually have 93 twice.
Yeah, you're right. And I corrected the 51.
Yeah.
Rupert had sent this to me with stating, hey, you got two 51s, but one of them is 051. I just didn't go far enough to correct the others, so those are good. Okay, those,
Bill, you're saying it's 091, 092.
and 093.
And 093.
Yeah. All the residential uses start with 0 unless they're single is 1. It's actually, single is 01, isn't it?
Yes.
All right, so I may have to correct that. Both of those boxes in the table, the first box next to residential, codes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I'll check that. And I'll check special use and accessory, and I'll check under mixed-use projects 7. I have a feeling all those need to have O's in front of them. But that's okay. We can correct that. I can correct the formatting on the table. I'm still not sure about the zones enumerated, but I will wordsmith that if you will grant me some latitude to make it make sense. Well, I see where Rupert's coming from. He doesn't want to give the mixed message that we, in a mixed-use project, single building project, it has to be a mix of uses in that building. But in a mixed-use land development, you can have a mix of uses based on buildings identified for different uses. We just have to say that better in section 3.1, the zones enumerated. So I'll if you'll grant me some latitude, I'll rewrite it, and I'll send it off to, yeah.
Are you comfortable with giving him carte blanche? Okay.
And Mark Brady has to pay for the whole thing. No.
Rupert, anything else? No. Tom?
Nothing.
Staff, anything to add?
I'm done.
Okay, do you see anybody in the public? All right, do I have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I move to recommend the town council adopt the zoning text amendment regarding mixed-use land development. And this motion incorporates the purpose from the ordinance and from, in the background and purpose from the staff memo from Mr. DeLuca, March 19, 2024. And it's consistent with the aims and principles of the zoning ordinance. It's consistent with the town's comprehensive plan. This amendment will affect the town's land uses, buildings, and facilities in Zone BB, and will encourage development, redevelopment of areas Zone BB, which are served by sewer and water, and will encourage pedestrian-friendly development and reduce dependence on automobile travel. It supports other regulations, in particular the town's affordable housing initiatives. With that, I recommend that we encourage the town council approve this, adopt this ordinance as we send it to them.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed? It moves forward. I want to thank all of you for the amount of work you've done on this. It's yeoman's work.
Mike, for years.
Before we close business, I'm going to ask everybody to turn their business envelope into me with the minutes from the executive session. Can I give those to Heidi?
Never got it. I don't have them. I don't have the written anymore.
All right, if you could do me a favor and shred it.
Yeah.
If you do have it, if you could send it to me. Staff, anything we need before we close?
Mr. Chairman,
Legislative updates.
we have a legislative update, and I sent you a sheet. It was 2 pages of references, and I'm not going to bore you with all the details, but I want to highlight a few of these bills, just so you know what's in the works and maybe coming down. So you have that sheet. It should be under F2 in your packet. And I want to start by stating that I think I left out the FAR bill, but it should have been in here. The FAR bill, as Steve mentioned, would do one thing, and that is to take out the allowance by local town councils to institute regulations that allow for floor area ratio to be one of the standards of review for development plans, such as, in the same vein as coverage, height, setbacks, all that other stuff. The bill literally has the section that describes standards of review from the Zoning Enabling Act. Replicated in the bill, verbatim, and the only change is a strikeout on the words floor area ratio. That's it. There's no purpose provided by the bill sponsor. There was, when Rupert and I went to the hearing, the bill sponsor did not attend the hearing. In most cases, the bill sponsor goes to the hearing for their bill. They give an impassioned explanation of why their bill makes so much sense and why it's so important. They often offer up documentary, backup evidence supporting their ideas. None of that happened. So I was the first person to speak on this matter, and I gave my presentation that was actually, I was representing the American Planning Association Rhode Island chapter that day. I was not granted authority by the town council, so I did not feel comfortable speaking on behalf of the town. But what I explained to them was floor area ratio is a great way to regulate how you manage land use in towns and how you can establish that a certain character of a neighborhood. And we pointed out that there have been cases, and this group here has seen them, where people want to, sometimes succeed in gaining approval to build much larger houses than the property can really support. So I gave my presentation and explained that the best thing that you can do, and I quoted someone who taught me very well, part of the best way to be a skilled professional is to be educated in your profession and know how to use your tools. That's about 10% of it. 90% of it is having the right tools. So if you're pulling the tools out of my toolbox and you're asking me to do something without any tools in my toolbox, it's going to get much more difficult. And that was my closing comment to the chair. Rupert gave a great presentation too, and I don't want to represent him, but he did a great job explaining his feelings about why FAR made so much sense. I have no idea where that stands. It hasn't got a companion bill, and it hasn't been sent to the floor as far as I know. It was held for further study, is that right? Yeah. So that's one.
Question. Yes.
So, Steve, based on what you're saying tonight, is this isn't just going to be elimination of FAR as far as residential, it'll also be commercial.
Because they just eliminated the town's ability to regulate based upon floor area ratio. Period. Again, it just struck out floor area ratio. It didn't, so it's because it's the Enabling Act,
Right.
it's not, FAR was not just used to stop, for big houses on little lots. There were other
Oh, yeah.
reasons for it.
In fact, the town of Narragansett had an FAR regulation back in the 70s that applied only to BA and BB zones. So And then they wrote it out of the ordinance in 1987, I think. Looking at the rest of the legislation, at the top, H7062 is the ADU legislation. This is legislation to enable and to put in place regulations for accessory dwelling units. The 7062 is the same exact bill as the one last year that did not succeed. And it says it's sponsored by Rep. Speakman, but it's really Mr. Shikachi's bill. The Senate bill 2630, which has been submitted by Senator Gu of Charlestown, has incorporated several different recommended provisions that are supported by the American Planning Association. And we're hoping that Senator Gu's bill does go through and get passed, and that the House acquiesces to the Senate bill. Moving down to item C, H7382 would amend the household limit to one person per bedroom minimum, not to exceed 5 total. And there have been numerous different ways of that's been interpreted. I would love to hear Steve's interpretation of that. Does that mean it can go, an 8-bedroom house would have allowance for 8 people? Or would it just stop at 5? I don't understand the syntax there.
I mean, does that eliminate a couple from living in a single-family house, a single one-bedroom house?
It's unrelated. It has to do with unrelated people, but yeah.
But if they're not married?
Oh, yeah.
I looked at it the exact opposite way as, wait,
Yeah.
if it's one person per bedroom, not to household limit is one bedroom minimum, not to exceed 5. But if you don't fit under the household definition, then, so.
Can you put 5 people in one bedroom?
Now we're just getting punchy. Yeah, I don't have that bill with me.
Make it maximum, if you have a 6-bedroom house, you're out of luck, you can only do 5, or whether, I don't know, Rupert, what do you think on this one?
I think that's their intention.
Just the maximum, so if you have 5, so the people 6, 7, and 8 are out of luck, basically.
Well, and I think there's other definitions, and I think you've pointed that out to me. There's other definitions where 6 comes in. Yeah.
Moving on, item E is a new bell addressing inclusionary zoning, and I really wanted to report this to you guys. This is, in my view, this is a success story. Because last year, we railed against the inclusionary zoning ordinance because of its, the inclusionary zoning provisions in the enabling law because of its untenable formula. And we were roundly criticized about it. Certain people are still making hay with that. But what happened was that someone came in and decided, maybe we should revisit that. And I can't remember who's sponsoring that bill, Rupert. Do you remember? It's not Casey.
I don't remember, but it's part of the speaker's package.
Yeah, which is good to hear that the speaker allowed for it to be put in as part of his package. So I think we made a big impact on the state of Rhode Island. We were the only ones who took a stand. Well, I'm sorry, on inclusionary zoning, there were several communities, but apparently we were the only one who was noticed. Maybe for other reasons, but the communities that did take the stand, there were others like us who wrote inclusionary right out of their ordinances for the same reasons we did, had an impact. Now they've reworked the formula. It's not to my 100% liking, but it is definitely a much more workable formula. And if it gets passed, we'll write an inclusionary zoning ordinance, and you guys will see it in the next 6 months. Moving all the way down to J, which is Bill 7981. It amends the zoning enabling law to authorize residential uses in all commercial zones. This, to me, is a real scary one. It puts commercial residential use in commercial zones in the same vein as group homes in all residential areas. It would effectively eliminate commercial zones. So I'm praying that this doesn't go anywhere, because all this other discussion we just had tonight about residential density changes yet again. H 7982, it would change the provisions relative to application of zoning ordinances pertaining to wetland buffers. Jill and I have been looking at that. I've been confused by that bill. I don't know if you have any personal thoughts on it.
I think the intention of the original, the law that was passed in 2015, which was promulgated, as we know, in 2022, removed the local municipalities' ability to regulate freshwater wetlands. I believe this is the attempt for those communities that still regulate coastal wetlands to remove the ability to regulate coastal wetlands. I believe that's the intention. I don't think that's the way it's written.
Yeah.
But I believe that's the intention. But we'll
When
see.
the speaker introduced his package, he talked about towns having overlay districts, but that doesn't read that way either, so.
No,
No, it
and
doesn't.
it's specific toward wetlands. Coastal, freshwater, I mean, freshwater's already been eliminated, and we've changed our regulations, and we haven't regulated that. We use the overlay layer in our information that we have, our ground truth information from nearby properties, to inform applicants if they need to seek approval from some other state agency, CMC or DEM. But that's it.
So, more to be seen on that, and yet again, an example of, what was the term, sufficiently vague? We used to hear that term a lot. If you're not sure what you really want, you write it sufficiently vague and let other people figure it out. I think that's what's happening there. Moving down to the next one down, manufactured homes could be included under 7984. Manufactured homes could be included as affordable housing under certain conditions. That could be a plus for many communities around the state. We don't have a whole lot of that here in Narragansett, but I don't see that as a negative.
Well, it does, I mean, if I'm a developer and I'm trying to, what stops me from putting mobile homes in, creating a mobile home park and saying, well, I'm doing this under affordable housing?
Well, you still have to come through the land development plan review.
But I meet setbacks, I meet densities, I meet everything.
Yeah.
The planner's discussion today, 2 points came out. One was, and Andy was there, one point was that, wow, the belief is that it's for these modular homes that look like the way it's written, that it also applies to mobile homes.
Okay,
And
all right.
And the other piece of it is that it counts for affordable units if the homeowners own the land. So if it's a park that's owned by the homeowners, and that's
That
very
wouldn't
rare,
count.
there's not many of those around, so.
Yeah, well, okay, I had kind of interpreted it differently, but I can see that there are problems with that.
Included in that too. Tiny homes are also.
Only a couple more I wanted to cover. They're on the second page, top of the second page, S 2089. This would allow low-mod income housing secured with a federal government housing voucher to be counted towards a municipality's affordable housing mandate. This would be a plus for the town, it'd be a plus for every town in the state. I've been saying for years, if we have people here who have Section 8 vouchers, they've been subsidized. And the state law on affordable housing states any and all housing that is subsidized either by city, state, or federal should be counted. And then that law was written, passed years ago. And then when we said, well, what about vouchers? They said, oh, no, but not vouchers. Well, that wasn't in the law. So we've been excluding our vouchers for years, and this would clarify that we can count the vouchers. We have over 160 vouchers in Narragansett, and we're like 450 units short of meeting 10%. So this would be a significant reference improvement for us.
That was heard last week in the Senate, but there's no House companion bill yet, so.
Okay. And the last one is, let Jill speak on this one, and that is the houseboat legislation. We've had a houseboat issue, thankfully not a huge one. And we have worked, both Jill and I have communicated with Representative Carson, who has sponsored this bill, along with our counterparts in Wickford and North Kingstown. Both communities have seen houseboats that are not really boats, more like houses on floats. And we're worried that they become B&Bs, Airbnbs, STR, short-term rentals. So, Jill, if you want to give them a little bit of background.
That was it.
Okay. Okay. That's really it. I just want you to know that these, you know, I don't think I've done much of this over the years, but in the past 3 or 4 years, there has been so much going on that affects zoning and subdivision development plan review that I feel as though you folks need to be aware that the General Assembly has certain ideas on what we should be doing at the local level. Some of them are good ideas. I just wish they would kind of vet them with local representatives before they put them out. Well, I'm hoping the good ones pass and the bad ones go away. With that, I am done.
So my question is, why did you skip S408, 2408? It amends several sections of the EA to promote neighborhood character and smart growth.
Sounds like a great bill, doesn't it?
Well, in lieu of what has already been passed, it would be a great bill.
Well, it's a very lengthy bill. It's about 30 pages long. It brings into play a lot of unquantified objectives and is another, it's patterned after, as I recall, it's patterned after legislation in Minnesota, which isn't necessarily a bad place, but it doesn't translate very well. And the vast majority of this bill is, well, there are a couple things in it that could be very detrimental. I only read it once this time around, but last year when I read it, I saw that there were some really significant negative parts. I don't have enough to say about it to give you detail. Oh.
I don't think it has any legs.
Well, in lieu of what's already been passed, I would say anything in that vein has no legs. So. Anything more from the staff?
Not at this time.
Okay. I just want to catch everybody up. I've taken the time, and I thank everybody for their time at meeting with Doc. I've met with everybody individually, and we're looking to develop a list of possible projects that we can work on as a group, and especially in lieu of the new legislation and the impacts to density, infrastructure, all parameters of our life here. And so when I finish, all I'm going to do is just put a list of what you've said. No pros, no Reader's Digest version, and then we'd like to look to create a working meeting where we can go over those and start to shape them and look at what we would like to prioritize, what the staff would like to see us prioritize, and where we can go. I think we have the group to do that. So thank you all for your time. If nobody has anything, Doc, anything to add? Jerry? No. Rupert? Tom? No, I'm good. Do I have a motion to adjourn? Move to adjourn. Do I have a seconded? I'll second. It is non-debatable. It is non-debatable. All those in favor?